Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. I am Aris and today we are reviewing the TTArtisan 35mm f1.4 lens, a very interesting lens. So the company sent me this lens for review. They're not sponsoring this video, they just sent it to me for review. So whatever you're going to hear today is just my opinion and nothing else. To test it, I shot on an overcast day, the photo you saw on Sunday. I shot on a very nice harsh light sunny day that you're gonna see on Sunday. And also I shot during a sunset and night. So today, taking all of this into account, we're going to discuss all of the features of the lens, how it is built, what are its characteristics, all of this kind of stuff. We're going to discuss about how it performs in all of these different conditions I shot in. We're going to discuss the pros of the lens, the cons of the lens, and finally whether it's worthwhile to buy it and who should buy this lens. The lens comes in this box. I do appreciate the carved shape of the lens in the box. I'm not sure if I appreciate the fonts of the letters here, but that's a minor detail. When you open the box, you will see a little manual, a warranty card, and below them the lens being wrapped in this nice protective bag. The lens comes with a screw-in cap in the front and a cap for its back side, but I placed it somewhere around my studio and I can't find it now, so pretend you saw it. Jokes aside, the lens is small. It weighs only 180 grams, but it is metallic and feels sturdy in the hands. Its shape is sort of conical. It is quite unique and I have to say that I enjoy it a lot. It is a full manual lens, it doesn't have any electronic components and it is not weather shielded. In the front you have the aperture wheel which goes from f1.4 all the way to f16. I love the fact that each different aperture point is a click. Just listen to it. Behind the wheel you can see the numbers that indicate the aperture, but there are no numbers for every aperture point. Here we have to note that this lens has 10 aperture blades that control its aperture. On the back we have the focus wheel which controls the focus. This wheel feels smooth and it's quite pleasant to move it around. Again, behind the wheel you can notice some numbers that indicate the focus distance you are currently focusing in. So how does the lens perform and what is my general experience that I had with it? As I said, I photographed out in the streets with this lens on Sony 6400 in an overcast day, a sunny day, sunset and night. So how does it perform in all of these different conditions? Let's start with the overcast day. So my first impression when I started shooting with this lens and I turned it to f1.4 because it is an f1.4 lens was that it was a sharp lens. I wasn't expecting it to be that sharp. Obviously, I wouldn't compare it with Sony G Master, but it is sharp, like seriously sharp. Also, the image you tend to get from this lens is quite contrasty and the colors tend to be quite vibrant. The bokeh is nice. It feels like either the foreground or the background, depending on what you have out of focus, it melts. And you can see it here in this shot right here where I focused in a flower which was in the middle of the frame and we had a lot of elements in the front and in the back out of focus. You see that it has a very nice out of focus, it has very nice out of focus elements in the photo. So it is a 35mm lens on an aps-c camera, but it does have the ability to give you these nice out of focus features in your photos. And such out of focus features, such subject background separation, such 3D pop as I call it often, helps a lot to give you this cinematic mood. So what this lens shows us is that you don't really need an 85mm lens or a 50mm lens to get this cinematic mood. You can actually get with a 35mm lens and it does have very different features than the other two focal lengths. As we said before, this is a manual lens, it doesn't have any electric components, so everything has to be controlled onto the actual lens. We don't have autofocus, we don't have automatic aperture, we don't have aperture priority and this kind of stuff. So you have to control everything and this makes things a bit confusing, especially if it's the first time you're doing it. The first time I got out to shoot with this lens, I was a bit silly and I went completely unassisted. So I tried to literally set up everything myself without any indication whether I'm in focus, whether my focus is out, where is my aperture, all this kind of stuff. Of course, for the aperture we cannot do much, but for the focus, the Sony cameras and other cameras as well from other manufacturers, they have these features that they can pinpoint where the focus is. They either turn this area to red or white or something like that to show you where you're actually focusing. So in this first photo walk where I was unassisted, I missed focus a lot, like a lot. In some cases it was bad because I was missing good shots. In another case, like this shot right here, I actually enjoyed it. And I enjoyed it because it did give a certain mood to the photo, an old kind of feel, and it went quite well with my black and white processing of the photo as well. So imagine if you're shooting at f1.4 and you're trying to pick focus and you have absolutely no indication of where focus is, it's going to be really hard. So I assume some old photographers might be pros in doing this kind of stuff. Unfortunately, I'm a bit too used to shooting with autofocus, so I struggled a lot. But I feel like with practice, it's going to come. At this point, I should say that if you want to find the TTArtisan 35mm 1.4, I will have a link down in the description. So in the second conditions I shot in very bright light conditions, I basically it had the same experience in terms of the quality of the images as I said about the outcast conditions, but at the same time I felt like it handled light, even when I was shooting directly against light, really well. My experience with 35mm lenses are with the Samyang 35mm lens, which is not doing good against bright light, like it's quite hazy. The TTArtisan was really good, it was unexpectedly good. In some cases I would get some solar flare, in some cases this solar flare would be nice, it would look nice, in some other cases it might be a bit disturbing, but in general I didn't observe this. Also, when I was shooting at higher apertures like f16 or around there, because we don't quite know the aperture if I'm not really looking at it, but let's say it was around f16, the Sunstar effect also was really nice. I was really pleased with how it was looking. It was clean, the lines were straight, the shape was beautiful. So yeah, definitely I enjoyed it. So I also have to say that at this photo walk, when I actually turned on the manual focus assistant from the camera, it did help a lot. I did get a lot more shots in focus. Now, when I was shooting with sunset, it didn't really deviate from the other two conditions. I would say it was pretty much the same. Finally though, when I shot at night, this is where things got a bit tricky. There are two different ways of seeing it, okay? So when you're shooting at night, you want to go down to f1.4 to get as much light as you can into the sensor, so you don't have to increase your ISO so much and you can keep your shutter speed a bit faster. Now, when you turn your aperture at f1.4 and with a manual focus lens, things become super hard, because imagine that it's night, you can kind of see what's going on around you and you are trying to focus. Long story short, it doesn't turn right. So a lot of photos were out of focus, I couldn't focus properly, which is reasonable. Okay, it's reasonable, it's f1.4 and it's night. If we're talking solely about the technical stuff, maybe even when you're shooting with this lens, maybe it's better if you shoot at f2.8 or even f5.6 and you bump up your ISO and you slow down your shutter speed a bit. Then everything would be absolutely fine. Now, this lens, this is the second way of actually seeing things. This lens is a very particular lens because it's a lens that has a lot of character. You can understand it when you are seeing the lens, because the lens looks, it has this very particular shape which is very different than anything else. Actually, let me show you. Yeah, so it has this conical shape. It gives you this vintage feel, this vintage mood. I mean, you expect from this kind of lens to give you photos with certain characteristics, with a certain character, okay? And it does, it delivers. So when you're shooting at f1.4, obviously your photos will have, they might be a little bit softer, they might be a little bit out of focus, and when they're out of focus, they might look a certain way. Lights seem to dehaze in a certain way that you don't really see with other lenses, and also they dehaze in a very quirky way, especially when they're out of focus. And all of these things might be not so nice if we see it from a technical perspective, but I particularly like them because they give a certain character to the photos that you cannot really get with another lens. And when we're talking about street photography, which is my specialty, let's say, and I believe that many of you are following this channel for the street photography, of course, having such a lens that has such characteristics and this kind of character that adds something quirky to your photos actually is what you're asking for, isn't it? This is what I am asking for. I'm asking for lenses like that. I love shooting with quirky lenses. I love shooting, I love to have the opportunity to shoot with vintage lenses, to get different types of images and effects in my photos, and really be creative by using them. So in my particular experience, these effects I was getting when I was shooting at f1.4 at night with this lens were absolutely brilliant. I love them. I felt like they would spark my creativity and they would give me a certain footing for creating different looking photos. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, the better you focus, the better you are able to manually focus at night, the better your photos will end up looking. And when you focus right, as I did in this photo right here, the photos look splendid, like really sharp, even at f1.4. So for night photography, it's a bit of a balance. What are you asking from a lens? Are you asking a character or are you asking the highest possible quality? If you do, maybe this lens is not right for you. If you are asking for a budget lens that has a lot of character, maybe you should look at this lens. Think about it. Now let's see the pros and the cons. Now, what are the pros and what are the cons of the lens? Let's start with the pros. I'm gonna start by saying that one of the pros is that it has an aperture of f1.4, minimum aperture of f1.4. And this is a really good thing because with this kind of aperture you can get extremely nice autofocus foreground and background, even when you're shooting at 35mm on an aps-c sensor. Also, when you're shooting at night with f1.4, you can get more light into your sensor, of course, with the caveat that the manual focus might be a bit harder. And but if you can, if you train yourself to be able to focus at f1.4 at night, then it's perfect for not having to increase your ISO so much, not having to slow down your shutter speed so much. That are very important things. Now, another very important thing for street photography is that it's a small lens, it's a very light lens, only 180 grams. You can barely feel it in your hands. It's a very discreet lens, so if you're doing street photography, this is a quite suitable lens. The image quality that you can potentially get from this lens can be really good, can be very sharp, can be very contrasty. You can get very nice colors with this lens. In some cases, it gives you this vintage feel. You can say that it's a bit because of how it looks, because of its build, and also you can say that it is like that because of certain characteristics, certain character it has when you're shooting, especially at more open aperture as f1.4. And finally, I have to say that it is very, very cheap. It's extremely inexpensive. You wouldn't expect it, but this lens costs I think around 60-70 pounds only. Now, what are the cons of the lens? Again, these cons are quite obvious. One of them is that it's a manual lens, so it might not be for everyone. It might not be for people that rely on the automatic features of the lens, that rely on the automatic focus, that rely on the automatic aperture and all of this stuff. Obviously, this lens doesn't have stabilization, so you have to be very steady, especially when you're shooting with slower shutter speed, especially when you're shooting at night and you have to shoot at slower shutter speeds. It doesn't have any weather sealing, so you have to be particularly careful when you're shooting in rain, snow, all this kind of stuff. Use some protection. Also, I have to say that it can be a little bit soft at open apertures at f1.4, which is not unexpected. It's actually very expected. Most lenses are quite soft at these kind of apertures, but I think still it does a decent job shooting at f1.4. So who is this lens for? Is this lens for everyone? Is this lens for certain people? Is this lens for other people? Let's see. In my opinion, this lens is really good for street photographers that are daring. If you are an old-timer street photographer that you have shot with manual lenses a lot and you know your way around them, then that's a no-brainer, very easy choice for you. If you are a younger photographer like me, that we are used to shoot with automatic lenses, then you have to be a bit daring. You have to want to shoot with manual lenses because it becomes very challenging. The other reason to consider this lens is if you are on a tight budget, because this is an extremely budget lens. I mean, 70-80 quid, it's not that bad for a lens, especially when you're getting this kind of quality out of it. So if you are a street photographer, if you are on a budget and you want a good lens that can shoot at f1.4, a 35mm that shoots at f1.4, and you like shooting street and maybe you want to do some portraiture, you might be able to do some portraiture with this lens as well. I tried it and I had a lot of fun with it. Then this lens might be for you. And finally, what is my personal opinion about the lens? Guys, I have a problem. I'm obsessed. I cannot stop shooting with this lens. Where is it? I have it mounted on my Sony 6400 since I got it, and it's still there. It hasn't gone anywhere. I've shot I think 5-6 times now with it. Absolutely love it. I shot here in this space. I shot out in the streets in all of these different conditions, and yeah, it makes me want to go out and shoot. And for this reason alone, I cannot say anything else but recommend it. And I recommend it to street photographers because I know that this is an enjoyable lens. And if you want to try it, guys, I'm very satisfied. I'm having so much fun with it, and I'm gonna continue shooting with this lens. And that was our review with the TTArtisan 35mm f1.4 lens, guys. If you have any questions about the lens, please let me know down in the comments, and I will try to answer them down in the comments. And if I see that there are many questions that I didn't answer in this video, I might make another video in the future to try and answer them. If you enjoyed the video, guys, remember to hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to get all of the notifications for my future videos. As always, share this video with any of your friends that might be interested in videos like that. And thank you very much for watching, guys. Until next time, bye bye.